Hello and welcome to the France 24 debate. Today, as the US has announced it's sent another 130 military advisors to northern Iraq to assess rescue scenarios for trapped civilians, and France says it's sending arms to Kurdish Peshmerga fighters battling ISIS. We'll be debating whether these moves are effective and whether the West can really do anything to counter the chaos in Iraq. Well, joining me to debate these issues on set here is retired French General Dominique Trinquant, the former head of France's military mission to the UN and now a consultant with the Mark Group military suppliers. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, the White House is sending in 130 military advisors or assessors, to use the US Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel's term, in northern Iraq. He says this is to help the humanitarian mission there to rescue people trapped in the Sinjar mountain area fleeing from ISIS. Interestingly, tonight we've had the White House refusing to rule out US forces on the ground in Iraq for this operation. Are we looking at boots on the ground here to create a safe corridor for these civilians?
No, I think the numbers are very, very small, and there is a need for advisors. At the same time, when you've got aircraft flying above, you need to have someone on the ground to show where they have to deliver the weapon system. Secondly, there will be weapon system arriving for the Peshmerga, and you need to have instructors, people who are around, who are able to show how this weapon must be used. So these are the two real military missions of probably these advisors. And the third one is, of course, for the different refugees to try to help and show the right way how to deal with the refugees.
Now, as you mentioned, that it's a very small number. I mean, it's a drop in the ocean. How effective can sending this number of military advisors in be, do you think?
The real bulk of the forces are the Peshmerga, and the advisors are here to show them how to use the system and to help them in the coordination with the aircrafts. So you need only small numbers, but the bulk of the force will be provided by the Peshmerga.
Now, France, President Hollande made a statement announcing today that France is going to arm, or is arming, Iraqi Kurdistan already. Is that the right move, in your opinion?
Yes, certainly. There are two types of moves. The first move is to show that we are with the US forces helping the Peshmerga. We are with the Peshmerga and with the US forces. The second move is trying to have more Europeans involved in that. There was a meeting yesterday in Brussels. This meeting achieved something on the humanitarian aid, but nothing on weapons. There will be a ministerial level meeting in Brussels, I think tomorrow or the day after. Yeah. And the move is to provide them weapons, because, as you know, a lot of European countries have considerably decreased their forces, so they've got weapons available, and so this weapon can be available for the Peshmerga.
Now, the EU has so far, I mean, it's meeting again, as you say, foreign ministers meeting, so far failed to agree a joint position, basically giving member countries the green light to act if they want to. It's not sending out a very strong signal, is it?
Yeah, of course, but I mean, we must not make a mistake. On the humanitarian aid, European is there. The Commission is running that. They put millions, and they are very good at doing that. On the weapon system, just remind that this is really a national issue. Each country can provide the weapons. I think the move of the French diplomacy put the move only to try to gather different country in order to do that. But I'm not sure that Europe will provide the weapons. It will be different nations coordinating their action to provide the weapons.
And if we look across the different European nations, certainly in Britain, there's a desire by some politicians not to go in, not to get involved militarily in any way in Iraq again after what happened in 2003.
Certainly, and you can show that the French position is very different. We don't have the same history in Iraq since 2003, but we've got a strong relation with the Peshmerga. So that's why probably the French want to show that they're present on that side of the threat. But we must look at the strategic view and know that the Caliphate is not only a threat in Iraq, it's also a threat in Syria and a threat on Lebanon. And on the Western Front on Lebanon, France has also a role to play due to a historical link with Lebanon.
I guess a wider question here is more intervention, military intervention, if not boots on the ground, but being involved militarily in Iraq, is that going to help, or is that going to just create more mess? Critics would say
no.
The West has done enough damage already in Iraq.
No, yeah, certainly. And probably now, it's very sad to say that, but President Obama is paying the price of the mistake made by the previous administration since 2003. But now we've got a major threat in Iraq. The jihadists must be defeated, and there must be a coalition, not only European, American, but also of the Arab country. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt must gather their different means to fight against the jihadists.
Okay, I'm going to bring in now, we've got joined on the line from the US, retired US Colonel David J. Harvey, who is a senior analytical specialist for Iraq, to General Petraeus when he was commander of the multinational forces in Iraq. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us tonight on France 24. What is the US strategy more long-term here? We've talked already about the US, the 130 US military advisors, but that's a humanitarian operation, the White House is saying. Longer term, what is the US's plan for controlling the chaos in Iraq?
Well, I'm not sure that I have been able to discern a strategic plan for the problem in Iraq and how it overlaps with Syria and the broader region. What we've seen are very tactical initiatives in Erbil and a few areas along the border there with the Kurdish regional government, and the humanitarian support, which in itself so far has been insufficient to the challenges there. We've not seen a broader outline of the way forward, either diplomatically, politically, or in partnering in a military way to enable partners in the region to work with us to tackle this challenge.
Because at the moment it seems that the US is carrying out limited airstrikes, maybe arming the Peshmerga, the Kurdish troops. Long term, I mean, surely that is not enough.
Long term, it's not enough. And even with what we're doing with the Peshmerga right now, if we were serious, we would be flying in C-17 loads of munitions, small arms, munitions, some mobility, and particularly some things like anti-tank weapons for the Peshmerga to use against the up-armored Humvees and other armored vehicles that the Islamic State are bringing to the fight. We would be doing this more aggressively with greater velocity and more material being delivered. It will take months and months for us to change the dynamic on the ground in the resupply for the Peshmerga at the pace we're going.
Let me ask you now, General Dominique Trinquant, do you agree with our guest there, Colonel David J. Harvey, that much more needs to be done, many more weapons need to be sent over to Iraq?
Certainly, the Colonel say that it was a tactical view currently, and we need to look at the strategic view. The threat is a very dangerous threat, and we've got to tackle that very quickly. So that means that we need to react tactically very quickly, of course, like it is done now, but we need to look at the future. What is the next step? And not only to tackle with the current threat against the Peshmerga, but the whole threat in the region.
David Harvey, isn't there a risk that the US could become embroiled in another long military mission in Iraq? Isn't this exactly what Barack Obama wants to avoid?
I believe that Barack Obama is spooked by the prospect of being re-engaged in a serious way in Iraq, because it undermines the premise of his Middle East policy, his Iraq policy, and threatens his Afghanistan policy of withdrawal. He has been shaping all responses in the region in a way that reflects an ambivalence to the outcomes and a failure to recognize the strategic interests of the United States, the threat to the United States homeland, and the threat to Europe, and the cost in the region.
What about the point that this is clearly a very volatile region, Iraq, Syria, the whole of the region? What about the risk of US arms getting into the wrong hands and being used maybe by ISIS fighters? We've seen them recuperating US material in Mosul, for example.
Well, I think that we should learn some lessons. The way the Iraqi army collapsed is because of some actions that were taken by Prime Minister Maliki and others that undermine the professionalism and capability of the Iraqi security forces. And that is a direct result of our too rapid disengagement and lack of political support for an inclusive, tolerant government in Baghdad. We stepped back far too early, and we have some great responsibility, in my view, for this downward slide that has happened in Iraq.
I'm going to put to you the same question that I put to our other guest, Dominique Trinquant, just a little earlier. Isn't more intervention from the West here, is that not a problem, rather the solution? Haven't Western forces created enough of a mess in Iraq already?
Well, there is a tremendous problem in Iraq today, and the United States bears some responsibility for it, and we have interests there, and we should shape our engagement based upon our strategic interests and our responsibilities. And if we use that as I teach a class on the dilemma of intervention for U.S. policy. And we have to be hard-nosed about analyzing what is in our interest and how to make things, how to shape outcomes that are favorable. We went too aggressively under the Bush administration, and we swung too far towards an isolationist and ambivalent approach by this current administration, with everything being examined through, let's do the minimum amount in order to just inoculate ourselves politically, focused on a domestic political outcome and not looking at really shaping outcomes on the ground and working with partners in an effective way, because there's an inclination to disengagement.
We'll have to leave it there. I am sorry, we could go on talking about this for a lot longer. Thanks there. That's retired US Colonel David J. Harvey there in the States. And with me in the studio, former French General Dominique Trinquant, the head once of France's military mission to the United Nations. Thank you both, gentlemen, for being with us here on France 24. Thanks to you at home for watching. Do stay tuned. Plenty more news coming up.